Welcome to E-commerce Psychology, powered by Growth Suite. Growth Suite helps you to run smart discount campaigns on your store. Test it for free on your Shopify store. Just land on the Shopify App Store now and test it for free. Today we're going to be diving into something that I think everybody has experienced, and it's that strange feeling when you learn something new and then suddenly it's like everywhere.
Yeah.
Like you learn a new word and then like it pops up in articles and conversations. You see it on billboards. It's like the universe is just like conspiring to like remind you of it constantly.
Right. It's like it's following you around.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's called the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, or the frequency illusion.
Oh, it has a name.
It does. It does. And it's more than just a coincidence. It actually has a lot of really fascinating implications for e-commerce, and especially when it comes to brand visibility.
So we've got this great article from ecommerce-psychology.com that breaks down the psychology behind this phenomenon. So like, what is really going on here? Is our brain like playing tricks on us?
Well, not exactly. Our brains are constantly filtering through just huge amounts of information, right?
All right.
And it has to prioritize what seems relevant at any given moment.
Makes sense.
So when you learn something new, your brain is essentially flagging it as important, like this is something I need to pay attention to. And so this heightened sensitivity basically makes you notice it more often, even though its actual frequency in the world hasn't actually changed.
Right.
You're just more attuned to it.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of like if you buy a new car and suddenly you see the same model everywhere.
Exactly.
You're just like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay. But how does this translate into the world of like e-commerce and brand building?
So imagine this. Okay, so a potential customer, they see your brand on Instagram, right?
Okay.
A few days later, they encounter your ad while they're reading an article online. Maybe then a friend mentions your brand in passing, right?
Cool.
Suddenly you're not just some random shop, right? You're this familiar name that keeps popping up. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Yeah, and then you start to think, oh, I've heard of them. They must be legit.
Okay, so you're saying this frequency illusion can actually make a brand seem more trustworthy.
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, there was actually a study done by University Name, and they found that brands seen 3 or more times were perceived as 23% more trustworthy by consumers.
Wow, 23%. That's huge.
That's a big difference.
That is significant, yeah.
Yeah, so familiarity breeds trust. It's like this fundamental principle of just human psychology.
Okay.
And so if your brand feels ubiquitous, if it feels like it's everywhere, consumers are just naturally going to be more likely to believe in your credibility.
Wow, okay. Now I'm starting to see how powerful this could be for e-commerce. But I am kind of curious about like the nitty-gritty science behind it. Like what is actually happening in our brains when we experience this phenomenon?
So it's a combination of several cognitive processes, right? The first one is selective attention. And this is essentially where our brains choose what to focus on. So you can kind of think of it like a spotlight, right? It's highlighting the information that it deems important. In this case, the new knowledge that you've acquired.
Okay, so our brain is like actively filtering out the noise and amplifying the signal of what we've learned.
Exactly.
Well,
exactly.
Okay.
So then on top of that, you have something called confirmation bias.
Okay, I've heard of this.
And this is our tendency to favor information that confirms our existing beliefs. So if you believe that a brand is everywhere, you're subconsciously going to be seeking out evidence to support that belief, right?
Right.
Which further reinforces that illusion.
Got it.
And you might even, without even realizing it, you might click on articles that praise a brand you've recently discovered. Even if you think you're being objective, right? You're kind of subconsciously drawn to that information.
Yeah, so it's not just about being more aware of the brand. It's that our brain is like actively searching for confirmation of what we think we already know.
Yeah. It's a powerful effect.
Wow. So we've got selective attention highlighting the brand. We've got confirmation bias reinforcing it. And then don't we also have, what was it?
Yeah.
The neural pathways strengthening the memory.
Every time you encounter that brand.
So this Baader-Meinhof phenomenon is like a pretty powerful cocktail for marketers, wouldn't you say?
It certainly is. But wielding this power ethically and effectively requires, a nuanced understanding of how to integrate it into your overall marketing strategy.
We need to be smart about how we leverage this. We don't want to just like bombard people or be super intrusive, right? I mean, that's going to have the opposite effect.
Exactly.
This is already making me rethink my whole approach to like brand visibility. Let's explore that further.
It really is. It's about making your brand feel omnipresent, but without being like overbearing, you know?
Right.
It's like, it's about creating the sense of natural integration rather than like forced exposure.
Okay, I'm starting to see the difference.
Yeah.
It's not just about like plastering your logo everywhere. It's
Yeah.
about like strategically being present in the right places at the right times.
Exactly. Yeah.
But how do we actually like achieve that?
Well, the article really emphasizes this idea of like multi-channel mastery.
Okay.
So you need to show up consistently across different platforms, right? So that's your website, social media, email marketing, even things like offline events or partnerships, if those make sense for your brand. But it's not just about being everywhere. It's about creating like this cohesive experience where your brand feels familiar no matter where a customer encounters it.
So it's like a surround sound approach to brand building, hitting them from all angles, but with a consistent message and aesthetic.
Precisely. And remember, balance is key. You want to be visible enough to be noticed, but not so much that you become annoying or intrusive.
Yeah, that's a delicate balance to strike.
Yeah.
What are some practical ways to make sure we're hitting that sweet spot?
So one really effective tactic is retargeting. You know those ads that seem to follow you around after you visited a website?
Yeah.
That's retargeting.
I've got to admit, those can feel a little creepy sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, how do they know I was looking at that specific pair of shoes?
Right.
It's a little spooky.
It can be. And that's why it's so important to use it thoughtfully.
Okay.
Like, done right, it's not about being creepy. It's about meeting the customer where they are in their buying journey.
Okay.
So let's say someone visits your website, they browse a few products, but they don't buy anything, right? And then they see your ad on Facebook a little later that day.
Yeah.
It's just a gentle reminder, right? Reinforcing that brand, building that familiarity.
Okay. I see how that could be effective without being like too in your face. It's like, just conveniently present
Exactly.
at the right time. Okay. What else could we do to kind of like harness this phenomenon?
Well, content is still king or queen.
Right.
Providing valuable, consistent content. This keeps your brand top of mind and it reinforces your expertise.
Right.
So think, blog posts, videos, infographics, anything that resonates with your audience and provides, genuine value.
So it's not just about being seen everywhere. It's about associating your brand with valuable information and insights that your target audience is actually interested in.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of a strong visual identity.
Okay.
So, a consistent logo, color scheme, font, all of that.
Yeah.
This makes your brand instantly recognizable across all those different touch points, right? It's like a visual shortcut to familiarity.
That's so true. When you see that like iconic swoosh, you instantly know it's Nike.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm getting a much clearer picture of how this all works. But before we get too carried away with like leveraging this phenomenon, we need to talk about the ethical implications, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Just because we can use these psychological insights, it doesn't mean we should exploit them.
Exactly. There's a fine line between being omnipresent and being like, that brand everyone's complaining about.
Right.
How do we make sure we're not crossing that line?
So the first step is to just be mindful of the annoyance factor, right?
Okay.
So monitor your data.
Yeah.
Are you seeing like high unsubscribe rates from your emails, negative comments on your ads?
Yeah.
These are all red flags, right? That you might need to dial back your frequency.
Got it.
It's a constant process of testing and refining your approach.
So it's about finding that balance between like making an impact but respecting your audience's space.
Precisely. And transparency is paramount.
Okay.
Be upfront about how you use data, right?
Right.
And give customers the ability to opt out of tracking or adjust their communication preferences.
Okay.
In an age where consumers are becoming increasingly savvy about marketing tactics, right?
Yeah.
Transparency builds trust.
Right.
And it ultimately fosters stronger, more authentic relationships with your brand.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not about like tricking people into buying. It's about building genuine connections.
Right. Consumers today are way more discerning than ever. They can spot a disingenuous marketing ploy from a mile away.
For sure.
So it's about adding value to their lives, not just adding to the noise.
This is all so insightful. I'm feeling much more confident about harnessing this phenomenon in a way that benefits both my brand and my customers.
That's what we like to hear. And speaking of the future, there are some really fascinating developments on the horizon that could revolutionize how brands leverage the frequency illusion.
Ooh, I am intrigued. What can we expect to see in the coming years?
One of the most fascinating developments is the rise of artificial intelligence.
AI.
Yeah, AI and machine learning. And, these technologies are becoming so sophisticated at predicting consumer behavior and then being able to personalize marketing messages.
So instead of just like blasting everyone with the same generic ads, we can really tailor our outreach to like individual preferences and interests.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So imagine a world where, your marketing feels less like this interruption and more like a helpful suggestion, right?
Right.
Where it's like, oh, this is something I actually might be interested in.
Right.
AI can analyze just huge amounts of data
Yeah.
to identify patterns, predict what a customer might want or need even before they know it themselves.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're kind of moving towards a future where marketing is less about intrusion and more about like anticipation.
Exactly. And then on top of that, you have all of these like emerging channels
Right.
that offer completely new ways to leverage the frequency illusion. So we're talking about things like voice assistants, podcasts, augmented reality, virtual reality,
It's like we're stepping into a whole new dimension of marketing.
right?
How do you see those channels kind of like playing out in terms of this Baader-Meinhof phenomenon?
Yeah, so imagine you're listening to your favorite podcast right there,
Okay.
and then you hear an ad for a product that you were literally just researching online.
Yeah.
It wouldn't feel like an interruption, right?
Right.
It would feel almost serendipitous.
That's such a good example.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the ad is meeting you where you are in your digital journey. It's not trying to like pull you away from what you're already doing.
Exactly. It's not disruptive.
Yeah.
And as these technologies continue to evolve, we can only expect to see even more creative and innovative ways to leverage the frequency illusion.
So the key takeaway here is that the future of marketing is all about being present in those right moments, not just being everywhere all the time.
Exactly. It's about, understanding your audience, anticipating their needs, and delivering value in a way that feels authentic and personalized.
This whole conversation has been so eye-opening. I feel like I've gained like a whole new perspective on the power of this phenomenon.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. And remember, the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, it's a powerful tool, but it's up to us to use it ethically and responsibly.
Well said. And speaking of tools, if you're looking for a tool to help you harness this power and kind of optimize your marketing campaigns, Growth Suite is an excellent option.
Absolutely. Growth Suite helps you run smart discount campaigns on your Shopify store. It gives you all the tools you need to like track your results, personalize your messaging, and just maximize your impact.
That's right. And the best part is you can test it out for free on the Shopify App Store.
That's right. Just search Growth Suite and you can start exploring all these powerful features.
So there you have it, the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon, from the psychology to the strategy to the future of marketing. It's been a really fascinating deep dive. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing and those brands booming.